The night air hung heavy with frost, a silver mist drifting across the rooftops of Riven Hollow. The moon watched from above, pale and unblinking, as if bearing silent witness to the trade about to unfold. Inside the small timber cottage at the edge of the woods, a young woman knelt beside the hearth, her hands trembling around a half-woven shawl. Ilara had always known the whispers. Barren. Cursed. Useless to any man. Words that once stung now only echoed faintly in the corners of her mind. She'd learned to live quietly, helping her mother with herbs and her father with debts. But tonight, quiet wouldn't save her. The door creaked open. Her father's shadow fell across the floorboards. "Ilara," he said softly, avoiding her eyes. "Get your things." "The Lord's men are waiting." She rose slowly, heart pounding. "Waiting for what?" Her mother's voice broke the silence. "They've offered gold, enough to pay the taxes and keep the farm." Ilara's gaze darted between them. "You sold me." Neither answered. Outside, hooves struck the frozen ground. The scent of smoke and horse sweat seeped in through the cracks. Her chest tightened as realization settled in. She was being bartered like cattle. She whispered, "You said the goddess would bless us if we had faith." Her mother's eyes glistened. "Faith doesn't feed the hungry, child." The soldiers didn't speak as they led her toward the carriage. Their armor glimmered beneath torchlight, sigils of wolves etched into their pauldrons. One of them, a tall man with grey in his beard, met her gaze briefly, pity flashing across his eyes. The carriage door shut behind her with a hollow thud. The wheels rolled forward, crunching over frost. She looked back once, watching the only home she'd ever known fade into darkness. Hours passed as the road wound through the forest. The air inside the carriage grew colder, sharper. Ilara wrapped her shawl tighter, her thoughts spinning like falling leaves. Barren, they called her. But how could they know what lived within her heart? She had dreamed of love once, of being seen for more than what her body could or couldn't give. But dreams were fragile things in Riven Hollow. She closed her eyes, and for a moment she imagined the moon whispering above her, its voice soft as silk. "Your story isn't over, child. The path of the Barren often births the strongest bloom." Her breath hitched. Hope was dangerous, yet it warmed her chest more than the wool around her shoulders. The carriage jolted to a stop near dawn. A thin light spilled through the window, revealing a stone bridge ahead and a banner waving in the wind, a wolf's head crowned in silver. "Welcome to the King's lands," the driver muttered. The king. Stories of him filled the taverns, an alpha who ruled through strength and sorrow. They said he had lost his Luna beneath a red moon, cursed ever since. His 2 sons had not spoken a word since her death. Some called them ghosts walking among the living. Ilara's stomach twisted. Why had his men bought her? What use could a barren woman have in a royal pack? As the carriage crossed the bridge, the first rays of dawn brushed her face. She pressed her hand to the window, staring out at the mist-shrouded capital in the distance. Towering spires pierced the horizon like frozen claws, and somewhere beyond them waited a fate she couldn't yet name. Still, beneath her fear, a strange spark flickered, not of rebellion, but of destiny. If you believe in second chances, in stories that rise from ashes and broken promises, stay with me, for Ilara's journey has only just begun. For in a world ruled by wolves and bloodlines, a barren heart might yet hold the power to change everything. The road to the capital wound through valleys veiled in fog, and by the time the carriage rattled over cobblestone streets, the sun had already disappeared behind slate-colored clouds. Ilara pressed her fingers to the cold glass, watching the towering walls of the city rise like a beast's ribs against the sky. Stone wolves guarded every gate, their carved eyes glinting with something ancient and watchful. A guard pulled the carriage door open. "Out, girl. You're expected at the orphanage by sundown." Ilara stepped down carefully, the hem of her dress brushing through patches of snow. The air smelled of iron and pine, sharp and unfamiliar. She caught glimpses of market stalls closing, nobles wrapped in furs, servants bowing low as soldiers passed. Every banner bore the same sigil, a crowned wolf beneath a blood-red moon. "The king's crest," murmured one woman near the well. her tone both reverent and fearful. Ilara's escort led her through the narrow streets until the castle loomed ahead. Its towers clawed at the heavens, windows burning like golden eyes in the dusk. She had seen castles in storybooks, but none carried this heaviness, as though sorrow itself had taken residence within its stone heart. Inside, the air changed. The warmth of the torches couldn't banish the chill that clung to the walls. The soldiers' boots echoed down the corridor as they handed her to an older woman with iron-grey hair and a gaze sharp as frost. "Name?" the woman asked. "Ilara," she whispered. "Brought from the northern villages. A healer's daughter, yes?" "You'll serve in the royal orphanage." "Yes, my lady." "Not my lady. I'm Mistress Wynne. You'll rise before dawn. The princes wake early." "The princes?" Mistress Wynne's eyes softened for the briefest moment. "Aye, the king's sons, orphans like the rest, though they live among ghosts of gold." Ilara frowned. "Do they—" "Speak," Wynne finished for her. "Not a word in 2 winters." "Since the queen died," the words lingered like smoke, "orphans though their father lives." Ilara followed Wynne through another hallway where portraits lined the walls, noble faces with proud eyes and wolf sigils painted near their hearts. The last portrait stopped her in her tracks. A woman with pale hair and sorrowful eyes holding 2 small boys. The plaque beneath it read, "Queen Lysandra of Eldoria." Ilara felt an ache she couldn't name. The boys in the painting had the same hollow expression she'd seen in herself too many times, loss wrapped in silence. That night, after receiving a plain grey cloak and a straw bed in the servants' quarters, Ilara lay awake, listening to the distant howls beyond the walls. She had heard tales of werewolves before, whispered among villagers as warnings, but here the sound felt less like menace and more like mourning. Sleep came late and fitful. When dawn finally crept across the narrow window, Mistress Wynne's voice cut through the quiet. "Up, girl. The princes take breakfast soon." Ilara hurried to the kitchen, helping carry trays of porridge and milk to the orphanage hall. Children's laughter filled the space, except for 2 small boys sitting apart near the window, identical in every feature: dark curls, silver eyes, and solemn faces that never lifted. She set their bowls down gently. "Good morning, little ones." Neither replied. But when she turned to leave, one of them, the smaller twin, reached out, gripping the edge of her cloak. His voice was a fragile whisper. "Mama." Every sound in the hall stopped. Mistress Wynne froze. The older twin's eyes widened, shimmering with tears. Ilara knelt, heart pounding, unsure what to say. "I'm not—" she began, but the boy pressed his forehead to her hand before she could finish. And in that single, trembling moment, the silence surrounding the royal bloodline cracked, just enough for hope to slip through. The castle of Eldoria breathed in whispers. Every corridor seemed to carry secrets, about the king, about the queen's death, and about the curse that no one dared name aloud. Ilara felt it each time she walked beneath the high arches, like cold fingers trailing along her skin. Even the torches flickered differently in these halls, bending away from the shadows rather than pushing them back. She had been in service only a few days, yet the air around her had changed. Servants passed her with sidelong glances, muttering after she left a room. Mistress Wynne warned her to keep her head down, but Ilara could feel the unseen eyes that followed her. "They think I'm cursed," she murmured one morning as she washed the boys' clothes near the fire. Wynne looked up from her sewing. "Not cursed, just unlucky. The king's wolves sense things, girl. They smell what others cannot. Best keep your thoughts clean, and your prayers cleaner." Ilara tried. Yet every time the moonlight poured through the tall windows, it brushed her skin like a whisper of something ancient. The twins clung to her whenever night fell. They feared the moon's rise more than the dark itself. "Does it hurt?" the smaller twin, Arian, asked one night as she tucked him in. "Does what hurt?" "When the moon gets red. Nurse Wynne says that's when Mama died." Her breath caught. "Who told you that?" "She did," murmured the older twin, Cale, his silver eyes glinting in the dim light. "And she said the red moon will come again soon." Ilara hesitated. Then we'll pray the goddess guards us all." But she remembered the villagers' words, how they whispered that barren women angered the goddess. Perhaps she truly was marked, not by chance but by design. Later that evening, after the children slept, she wandered toward the old chapel tucked behind the western tower. Candles burned low, and in the silence she heard the faint howl of wolves echoing through the mountains. At the altar stood a cracked statue of the moon goddess, her face half shattered, eyes forever cast downward. Ilara knelt, whispering a prayer she had nearly forgotten. "If I am cursed, tell me why. If I am not, show me mercy." A sudden draught swept through the room, extinguishing every flame. Only the moonlight remained, spilling through the window and bathing her hands in silver. For an instant, the mark of the goddess, the crescent, flickered faintly across her palm. Then it vanished. "Did you see that?" a voice said behind her. Ilara turned sharply. It was Mistress Wynne, her face pale as linen. "You should not be here after dark," Wynne whispered. "The Queen prayed here too on the night she died." Ilara's throat tightened. "Was it the red moon?" Wynne nodded slowly. "It rises once every 7 winters. The king forbade all mention of it after that night. Some say the Queen's screams still echo through these walls." As they left the chapel, Ilara glanced once more at the broken statue. The moonlight glimmered where her hand had rested, like a secret she wasn't meant to know. The next morning, whispers spread faster than smoke. Servants claimed the Alpha's sons had spoken in their sleep, calling out to their mother. Others said they called another name, Ilara. When she entered the orphanage hall, every head turned. The children stared wide-eyed, the twins clutching her skirts as though seeking shelter. One of the cooks muttered under her breath, "The barren one brings the Queen's ghost with her." Ilara knelt to the boys, her heart trembling. "Don't listen to them," she whispered. "You're safe with me." But deep down she wasn't sure she believed it, for in the stillness of that morning, beneath the grey wash of light, she felt the moon watching her again, patient, waiting, as if it already knew her fate. The rumour reached the throne room before she did. Servants whispered that the Alpha's sons, silent for 2 winters, had spoken to the new servant from Riven Hollow. Some called it a miracle, others a trick. By morning the king himself demanded her presence. Ilara's hands shook as Mistress Wynne adjusted the collar of her grey cloak. "Whatever happens, keep your head bowed. The king has no patience for trembling tongues." "I don't seek his anger," Ilara murmured. "No one seeks it," Wynne replied, "but everyone finds it eventually." The doors to the throne room groaned open. The chamber was vast, its marble floor gleaming beneath shafts of cold light. Wolf banners hung high above, their silver threads shimmering like moonlight. At the far end sat King Aldrich, the Alpha King, broad-shouldered, crowned in iron and silence. His presence filled the space like a storm barely contained. Ilara knelt. "Your Majesty." The king's voice cut through the air. "You are the woman they call Healer's daughter, the one the princes spoke to." "Yes, my lord. They haven't spoken to anyone since their mother's death, and yet when you arrived—" He rose from his throne, descending the steps slowly. His boots echoed like the beat of a war drum. "They called you mother." Ilara's heart pounded. "I meant no disrespect. The boys were frightened. I offered comfort, nothing more." Aldrich circled her, studying her as though she were some strange creature. "Do you know what people say of barren women, girl?" She swallowed hard. "That they are cursed by the goddess." He stopped behind her. "And yet you walk in my halls untouched by that curse. My sons, heirs to the Alpha line, trust you when they trust no one else. Why?" "I don't know, my king." "Lies." His voice hardened. "Everyone wants something. Gold, power, pity." Ilara dared to lift her gaze, meeting his silver eyes for the first time. "Forgiveness," she said quietly. A silence stretched between them. The king's jaw tightened. "Forgiveness? Yes," she whispered, "for being born wrong, for being sold, for surviving when others said I shouldn't." A flicker of something, recognition perhaps, passed through his expression before it vanished. "You will continue tending to my sons," he said finally. "If they speak again, you will inform me immediately." "Yes, Your Majesty." He turned away, but his voice carried across the hall. "And girl." "Yes. If I learn you've deceived me, not even the moon will shield you." She bowed deeply. "I understand." When the doors closed behind her, she exhaled for the first time, her breath trembling. Outside, the castle felt even colder, the weight of the king's words pressing against her ribs. Mistress Wynne waited in the corridor, her expression unreadable. "Well?" "He told me to care for the princes." Wynne raised an eyebrow. "That's all?" "That's all," Alara lied, though her chest still burned from his gaze. That evening she returned to the orphanage hall. The twins ran to her, their small hands clutching her skirts. "He was angry?" Kale asked. "Not at you," she assured softly. "The king is complicated." Arian pressed a small carved wolf into her palm. "For you. So you're not afraid at night?" She smiled faintly, her heart softening. "Thank you, little one. But I think you're the brave ones." As the boys drifted to sleep, Ilara sat by the hearth, turning the wooden wolf between her fingers. The firelight cast long shadows across the room, one of them stretching toward the window where the moon hung heavy and low. Somewhere deep within the castle, the Alpha King stood alone before his late queen's portrait, the same silence haunting him that now bound her fate to his. And though neither yet knew it, the night had already begun to change them both. The days that followed blurred together, yet each night felt heavier than the last. The moon grew fuller, brighter, until its light spilled through every corridor like a secret searching for a place to rest. Ilara felt it watching her. The twins slept soundly only when she sang the old lullaby her mother once whispered, the one the villagers said belonged to the moon goddess herself. But tonight, the air carried something else, a faint hum beneath the floor, a rhythm pulsing like a heartbeat deep within the castle. When she leaned closer, the stones seemed to breathe. She sought Mistress Wynne after supper. "Do you hear it?" she asked quietly. "The sound beneath the walls." Wynne frowned. "You've been here long enough to know better than to listen to this castle. It remembers too much." "What does that mean?" "Every alpha builds upon the bones of the last. Eldoria stands on its own dead." Ilara shivered. "And the queen?" "The king forbade her name after her passing," Wynne said sharply. "Speak it too often, and you'll draw the moon's gaze." That night, long after the children fell asleep, Ilara followed the whisper. It led her through the servant corridors, down winding steps that seemed untouched by time. Her candle flickered against damp stone, illuminating carvings of wolves and women, their hands raised toward the moon. A faint door stood at the end, iron, cold, half hidden by ivy. When she pressed her palm to it, the surface glowed faintly, a silver crescent forming where her skin touched. The door opened without a sound. Inside, the air was still, thick with the scent of moss and candle wax. Ancient runes spiraled along the walls, each glowing softly in her presence. At the center lay a stone altar surrounded by pools of water reflecting the moonlight from a crack above. Ilara stepped closer, drawn to the shimmer. Within the reflection, she saw not her face, but that of the queen. Pale eyes, the same sorrowful gaze from the portrait staring back. She gasped and stumbled back. The reflection changed, revealing flashes of wolves running beneath a blood-red moon, their howls twisting into cries of grief. Then, silence. A voice whispered, not aloud, but within her mind. The alpha line defied the bond. The goddess remembers. Ilara fell to her knees, clutching her chest. The mark on her palm burned faintly again, just as it had in the chapel. "Who are you?" she whispered. "The one who waits. The curse that binds them began with betrayal, and only the unclaimed heart can end it." Her breathing quickened. "Unclaimed heart." The voice faded, leaving behind only the echo of a heartbeat and the sound of distant footsteps. "Who's there?" came a rough voice. Ilara froze. It was the king. His presence filled the chamber before she even turned. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his tone low, almost dangerous. He stepped closer, eyes narrowed as they caught the faint shimmer on her palm. "What have you done?" "I don't know. I followed the sound." Aldrich's gaze darkened. "This place was sealed after the Queen's death. No one but my blood should be able to enter." The silence between them stretched thick and heavy. The candlelight flickered, and for a brief moment he looked less like a king and more like a man haunted by ghosts. "Leave," he said finally, "and speak of this to no one." Ilara hesitated. "Your Majesty, there's something beneath this curse, something alive." "Enough," he warned, voice like thunder. "Go before the moon decides you've heard too much." She fled up the stairs, heart pounding. Yet even as she reached the safety of her quarters, she could still hear it. That pulse beneath the stone. The castle was alive, and it remembered her name. The red moon rose without warning, staining the night in a strange, trembling light. Ilara felt it before she saw it, a heaviness pressing behind her ribs, like the air itself had grown aware. The castle's wolves howled in unison, their cries echoing across the stone walls. Somewhere above, a child screamed. She ran toward the orphanage hall, heart hammering. The twins' room was filled with chaos, servants shouting, healers rushing, candles flickering in and out of flame. Cale knelt beside his brother's bed, tears streaking his pale cheeks. Arian's small body shivered violently beneath the sheets, his skin burning with fever. "What happened?" Ilara cried. Mistress Wynne's voice trembled. "It began when the moon turned. His pulse fades with it. The royal healer says the curse awakens through blood." Ilara pushed past them, kneeling beside the boy. His eyes fluttered open, silver dulled to grey. "Mama!" he gasped, voice breaking. "I'm here, my love," she whispered, gripping his tiny hand. "Stay with me." He coughed, his lips turning blue. Wynne tried to pull her back. "You'll only make it worse." "No," Ilara said firmly, something ancient rising inside her. "He needs moonlight." She tore open the curtains. The crimson glow poured into the room, strange and wild. The others recoiled, muttering prayers, but Ilara felt warmth rush through her veins, the same pulse she'd felt beneath the castle. Her palm burned. The crescent mark glowed faintly again. She pressed it to Arian's chest. "Moon above, hear me," she whispered. "Spare this innocent. Take what you must, but let him breathe again." A light burst from her touch, one soft silver alive. The fevered air cooled. The boy's breathing steadied, colour slowly returning to his cheeks. Cale clutched his brother's arm, sobbing with relief. Mistress Wynne crossed herself, voice trembling. "By the goddess, what did you do?" Ilara could barely speak. "I don't know." The door slammed open. King Aldrich entered, his cloak whipping behind him. His gaze swept over the room, the kneeling servants, the boys clinging to Ilara, the faint silver glow that still lingered on her skin. "What is this?" he demanded. Wynne stammered. "The younger prince was dying, my king. She touched him and he lives," Aldrich finished, disbelief flickering across his face. He approached slowly, eyes narrowing. "Show me your hand." Ilara hesitated. "Your Majesty, Now." She lifted her hand. The mark had faded, but the warmth remained. Aldrich stared at it for a long moment, then at the sleeping child. "You summoned light under a cursed moon," he said quietly. "Do you know what that means?" "No," she whispered. "Only that he's safe." The king's expression hardened, but his voice was quieter now. "Few in this kingdom have defied the red moon and survived. You've done what healers, priests, and wolves could not." "I only did what any mother would," she said softly. His eyes met hers, storm grey, searching. For a heartbeat, the Alpha King looked almost human. "You are not their mother," he said, but the words carried no conviction. She bowed her head. "Then forgive me for loving them as one." Aldrich turned away sharply, cloak sweeping behind him. "You will come to the Great Hall tomorrow," he said. "I would know what power walks beneath my roof." When he was gone, silence filled the room. The fire burned low, gentle now, as though the storm had passed. Arian's breathing deepened into sleep. Cale reached for Ilara's hand, pressing it to his chest. "Don't let the moon take us," he whispered. "I won't," she promised, though her own heart trembled. For the first time, she felt the castle's eyes not in judgment, but in fear. The following days unfolded beneath uneasy silence. The red moon waned, but its mark lingered in whispers that clung to every corridor. Servants bowed too quickly when Ilara passed. Some crossed themselves, others avoided her entirely. They called her moon-touched, though no one dared say it to her face. In the nursery, however, the air felt different. Tyrion's laughter returned, light and warm, while Cale had begun to hum when he painted by the window. For the first time since she'd arrived, their smiles reached their eyes. Ilara lived for those moments, even as the rest of the castle grew colder around her. Mistress Wynne warned her one morning, "You've drawn the king's attention in a way no one survives long, girl. Be careful what kindness costs you." Ilara brushed the words aside, though they settled like stones in her chest. "If kindness costs me my place, then so be it. I owe them my heart." Before Wynne could reply, a messenger entered the hall, breathless. "By order of His Majesty, Lady Ilara is to dine with the royal court this evening." Wynne froze. "He calls you lady now?" "Saints preserve us." That evening the great hall glowed with firelight. Nobles filled the long tables, their laughter sharp as blades. When Ilara entered, their chatter dimmed. She walked behind the steward, keeping her chin low, feeling every stare like a weight on her shoulders. King Aldrich sat at the head of the table, his gaze unreadable. "You've been avoiding me," he said once she approached. "I've been tending to your sons, Your Majesty," she replied softly. "And performing miracles, it seems." His tone carried both curiosity and something else, unease. "Tell me, Healer's daughter, does the goddess whisper in your sleep?" "No," she said, holding his gaze despite the murmurs around them. "Only the sound of children who no longer fear the dark." The court grew silent. Aldrich's lips curved almost imperceptibly. "Then perhaps your prayers are stronger than mine." A nobleman to his right, Lord Thane, scoffed. "With respect, my king, the woman is dangerous. The queen's death began with moonlight as well. Shall we tempt fate again?" The king's eyes flashed. "Enough." His voice carried the weight of command. "This court will not speak her name with venom." "She saved my bloodline." Ilara's breath caught. His defense, though brief, struck something deep within her, but the nobles' glares burned hotter. She could feel their disdain, sharp as knives. After the meal, as the nobles dispersed, Aldrich approached her quietly. "They fear what they do not understand," he said. "So do you," she murmured. He studied her for a long moment. "Perhaps." Then softer. "You remind me of someone I once knew, someone who saw light where others saw ruin." Ilara lowered her voice. "Your queen?" His jaw tightened. "That name is not spoken." Silence stretched between them, filled with the rhythm of the fire. Then he turned away. "Go to the princes. They will rest easier if they know you are near." She bowed slightly. "And you, my king?" "Do you rest easily?" He paused at the doorway. "I haven't rested in years." That night, when Ilara returned to the nursery, the twins were awake. Cale ran to her, eyes bright. "You're not in trouble?" "No, little one." Arian smiled sleepily. "We told the guards you wouldn't leave us." She tucked them both in, her heart soft with wonder. "And I never will," she whispered. Outside, the moon rose pale and silver, no longer red but not yet pure. In the stillness that followed, a new whisper filled the halls of Eldoria, not of curses or miracles, but of something far more dangerous, the beginning of love. Spring crept into Eldoria, though the castle walls still felt frozen. The king had grown quieter, his glances toward Ilara sharper, longer. The twins followed her everywhere, laughter echoing where grief once lived. For a time it almost felt like peace, until the past came knocking. The gatekeeper's bell rang at dusk. A caravan had arrived from the northern villages, carrying merchants and wanderers seeking the king's coin. Among them stood two faces Ilara thought she would never see again, her parents. She froze where she stood, the tray in her hands trembling. Mistress Wynne noticed the colour drain from her face. "What is it?" "Nothing," Ilara whispered, setting the tray down too quickly. "I need air." But the air outside cut like glass. Her father's voice carried over the courtyard, deep, desperate. "We come to see our daughter. The one you took from us." Guards blocked their path, yet the commotion reached the king's ears. Aldrich descended the steps, his expression unreadable. "Your daughter serves within these walls," he said evenly. "What business brings you here?" Her mother curtsied shakily. "Only to see her, your majesty. We are poor folk wronged by fate." "We sold her in ignorance, not cruelty." Ilara's throat closed as the crowd parted. The king turned toward her. "Is this true?" She stepped forward, voice barely steady. "They are my parents." Her father's eyes gleamed with something darker than remorse. "You've done well for yourself, child, a servant to the king. How proud we are." Aldrich's gaze flicked between them. "You sold your blood and now seek to profit from her again." The man flinched but did not back down. "We only ask for what's fair. A token of thanks for raising her." "Raising her?" Ilara's voice broke. "You sold me for less than a bag of grain." Her mother began to cry. "We were starving." Aldrich's patience thinned. "Enough. Take what you came for and leave before my mercy fades." But her father, emboldened by greed, pushed further. "Surely the king would not shame his own servant's kin, unless of course she has deceived you." The crowd gasped. Ilara stiffened. "What are you saying?" He smiled bitterly. "She wasn't always Barren. There was a boy back home, a blacksmith's son." The goddess struck her womb for her sin. Aldrich's face turned to stone. "Is that true?" Ilara's heart splintered. "No, I swear it. There was no one—" But the king's silence was heavier than accusation. Her father saw his chance and pressed on. "You see, your majesty, she brings misfortune wherever she goes. Even her blood is tainted." "Enough!" Aldrich roared. The air seemed to shake with the sound. Guards seized her parents and dragged them toward the gate, but the damage was done. Ilara could barely stand. "You don't believe them," she whispered. The king turned away. "Belief is a luxury for those without kingdoms to protect." Tears blurred her vision. "After all I've done, you've done what any woman desperate for favor would do," he cut coldly. "Do not mistake the affection of children for redemption." His words struck harder than any blade. She fell to her knees. "You think I used them?" "Go," he said quietly. "Before I remember, I'm their king, not your keeper." Mistress Wynne found her hours later, standing alone in the courtyard as the rain began to fall. "He'll see reason," Wynne said softly. Ilara shook her head. "No. He's already seen what he wanted to." Lightning cracked across the sky. Somewhere inside the castle, the twins cried out for her, their voices muffled by locked doors. The moon broke through the clouds, pale and distant, watching as love turned to exile once more. The forest swallowed her. Rain drenched her cloak, mud clung to her boots, and the wind howled like a grieving mother. Behind her, the towers of Eldoria faded into mist. The king's words still rang in her chest, sharp, cold, unforgiving. "Do not mistake affection for redemption." Each step felt heavier than the last. She no longer wept. The tears had frozen somewhere deep inside her. Night fell and the woods came alive with whispers, the creak of branches, the low growl of unseen beasts. She was alone again, just as she'd been before the wolves, before the princes, before hope had dared to touch her. By dawn, she reached the edge of a forgotten clearing. There, the ruins of an ancient shrine stood half buried beneath vines and moss. A crescent symbol carved into stone glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Exhaustion pulled her to her knees. She whispered hoarsely, "If you're real, moon goddess, if any of this was ever more than a curse, show me why." The forest fell silent. Then a breeze stirred the air, carrying the faint scent of silver and snow. From the shadows, a wolf emerged, white as starlight, its eyes the color of the moon. It moved without sound, each step deliberate, ancient. Ilara froze. "You're not real." The wolf tilted its head, then spoke, not aloud but within her mind. "I am as real as your sorrow. You have walked the path of the forsaken and still reached for light. Few ever do." Her voice trembled. "Why me? Why choose someone barren, broken?" "Because emptiness is not a curse, it is space for what must be born." The words struck something deep inside her. The mark on her palm glowed again, brighter than ever, casting silver ripples across the ground. The wolf's gaze softened. The alpha line was bound by pride. The first king defied the mate chosen for him by the moon. The curse has endured through every generation. You, child of the unclaimed heart, were born to end it. She shook her head. "I can't. I've been cast out. The king hates me. The people fear me." "Even a heart rejected by the world may still be chosen by the divine," the voice whispered. "The blood of the moon runs through you." The light that healed the child was not a miracle. It was memory. Yours and mine. Ilara's breath caught. "Then the goddess didn't abandon me." "She never abandons her daughters," the wolf said, stepping closer. "But she tests them, as she tested me." The beast lowered its head until its muzzle touched her brow. A warmth spread through her body, gentle at first, then powerful enough to steal her breath. Visions flooded her mind. The first Luna bound to a mortal king, her betrayal, her sorrow, and the curse that followed. Blood turned to silver. Wolves bowed before the moon. When the vision faded, the white wolf was gone. Only the faint glow of her mark remained. She pressed her hand to her chest and whispered, "I understand." A distant howl echoed through the valley. The sound made her heart ache. It was the royal wolves calling from the castle. "They need me," she murmured. But doubt clawed at her. The king had banished her. The nobles despised her. Yet deep within, the pulse of the goddess remained steady, guiding her north toward the mountains that watched over Eldoria. Ilara rose, rain dripping from her lashes, determination igniting where sorrow had lived. She would not beg for forgiveness. She would return not as a servant, nor as the barren girl the world had pitied, but as the moon's chosen. And somewhere far behind her, under the pale light of dawn, the wolves howled again. Not in mourning this time, but in recognition. The wind carried the scent of smoke long before the first fires touched the horizon. From the cliffs overlooking Eldoria, Ilara saw the kingdom shrouded in chaos. Columns of black rose from the outer villages, curling toward the sky like warning sigils. The howl of wolves echoed faintly across the valley, desperate and broken. She had not returned to the castle since her exile, but the sight tore at her heart. "The goddess warned me," she whispered. "The curse was never meant to stay quiet." A shadow moved among the flames, a dark army advancing beneath the banner of a crimson fang. Word had spread through the realm of a rival Alpha, once a lord of the south, now bent on seizing the throne. The people called him Darien the Blooded, a beast who served no moon, only his hunger. As Ilara watched, the goddess's mark burned against her palm, pulsing faster with every heartbeat. "They are in danger." The voice came not from the wolf this time, but from within her own chest. Her breath quickened. "The king, the boys." She turned from the cliff and began her descent through the forest, her cloak snapping in the rising wind. The trees whispered warnings, fragments of the goddess's power lingering in their branches. The curse had awakened fully now, and the kingdom would bleed for it. By the time Ilara reached the outer gate, the battle had begun. Arrows blazed across the sky, the air thick with smoke and iron. The loyal wolves of Eldoria fought fiercely, but the enemy moved like shadows, their eyes glowing with unnatural light. She pushed past fleeing villagers, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Where are the princes?" No one answered. At the castle gate she found Mistress Wynne among the wounded, blood streaking her sleeve. "Ilara!" Wynne gasped, eyes wide. "The king! He sent them away to the mountain keep, but the enemy knew. They ambushed the escort." Ilara's stomach dropped. "Where?" "North Road. The king rides to them now." She didn't wait another word. The mark on her palm flared again, guiding her through the smoke and noise. Her feet barely felt the ground as she ran, heart pounding with one thought: I cannot lose them. The forest ahead roared with the sounds of war. She broke through the trees to find chaos, wolves clashing with armored soldiers, steel meeting fang. And in the midst of it, King Aldrich fought like fury incarnate, his blade a silver blur under the moonlight. "Elara," his voice cut through the noise the instant he saw her. "Go back!" She shook her head. "Your sons, where are they?" His expression faltered. "Taken. The enemy's riders escaped with them." Her breath caught. "Then we must go after them." He grabbed her arm roughly, anger flaring. "You think I haven't tried? This is my war, not yours." She met his fury with fire of her own. "It's my destiny, Aldrich. The curse isn't just yours to bear anymore." For a heartbeat they stood locked in silence, the world burning around them. The wind howled, carrying the scent of blood and ash. Then Aldrich's grip loosened, his expression breaking into something raw, desperate. "Then ride with me," he said. They mounted and tore through the forest together, moonlight flashing through the branches. Elara's pulse matched the rhythm of the earth, every beat screaming of urgency. She could feel the twins, frightened, calling out to her through the bond that had never truly been broken. Somewhere ahead a horn sounded, the signal of retreat. Elara looked to the king, fear and certainty mingling in her voice. "It's not retreat," she whispered. "It's a warning." Aldrich turned sharply. Of what? Before she could answer, the ground beneath them trembled. From the trees ahead, a monstrous howl rose, ancient, furious, and unlike anything born of this world. The blood moon was rising again. The forest burned with the color of blood. The moon hung low, swollen and red, casting its curse upon all who fought beneath it. Elara could feel its pull in her veins, an ache between fear and awakening. Ahead, the screams of battle faded into a deeper silence. The king dismounted, blade drawn, his silver eyes reflecting firelight. "They've taken the princes north," he said through gritted teeth. "Darien wants to finish the curse himself." Elara's pulse quickened. "Then the goddess brought us here for a reason." Aldrich turned sharply. "Do not speak of her. Not now." But Elara felt the mark on her palm blaze with heat. "She's already speaking through me." Thunder cracked overhead. The trees shuddered as the ground split open before them. Out of the fissure rose a circle of ancient stone, glowing faintly beneath the moonlight. Symbols of wolves, moons, and crowns shimmered across its surface. Aldrich's eyes widened. "The lunar circle. It can't be." Elara stepped closer. "The goddess's trial," she whispered. "This is where the first Luna proved her soul's truth." A voice rolled through the clearing, cold, mocking. "Then prove yours, little healer." Darien emerged from the smoke, clad in dark armor, his pack at his back. His eyes burned gold with madness. "The king's pet witch. The curse whispers your name, just as it whispered hers." Aldrich's growl rumbled deep in his chest. "Release my sons." Darien smirked. "When your line ends." He snapped his fingers, and two soldiers dragged forward the trembling princes. Cale clutched his brother's hand, whispering Elara's name. Something inside her broke. The moon's light wrapped around her like a shroud. She stepped between Aldrich and Darien, her voice steady despite the quake in her heart. "Then take me instead." Darien laughed. "You think you can trade your life for theirs? You're nothing, Barren girl." Elara lifted her marked hand. "I am chosen." The air trembled. The moon's glow intensified, painting her skin in silver fire. The ground beneath her feet pulsed, ancient words rising from the stones in whispers. Aldrich shouted her name, but she could no longer hear him, only the voice of the goddess filling her mind. The trial begins. A circle of light erupted around her. Pain lanced through her body as her blood answered the moon. Her vision blurred, showing flashes of wolves howling, queens crowned in sorrow, and 1,000 forgotten prayers. She gasped, falling to her knees. Darien staggered back, shielding his face. "What are you?" Her voice was not her own when she answered. "The reckoning you feared." The wind screamed as spectral wolves materialized around her, ghostly shapes of Luna's guardians. Their howls pierced the night, shaking the forest to its roots. One by one, Darian's men dropped their weapons and fled. Only their leader remained, trembling with fury. "You think the goddess favors you," he spat. "You are her punishment, not her gift." Ilara raised her hand, moonlight surging from her palm, then let her punishment speak. The light struck him square in the chest. His scream echoed through the forest as the red hue drained from the moon, replaced by a pale silver glow. The curse recoiled, twisting like smoke before vanishing into the air. When silence returned, Ilara collapsed. The wolves faded into mist, leaving only the scent of snow and the faint hum of the stones. Aldrich rushed to her, gathering her in his arms. "Ilara, look at me. Breathe." Her eyes fluttered open, silver light fading from her irises. "The goddess isn't done," she whispered weakly. "This was only the trial." He held her close, heart pounding against hers. "Then I will face whatever comes next beside you." Above them, the moon turned pure once more, shining upon the broken forest like a promise. Dawn crept slowly over the battlefield, revealing the wreckage left behind. The forest lay still, blanketed in ash and silence. The silver glow of the moon had faded, replaced by the pale shimmer of morning light. Aldrich stood beside Ilara, his sword buried in the earth, his breath shallow but steady. Around them, the last of Darian's men scattered into the shadows, broken and defeated. Ilara stirred, her body aching, her palms burned raw from the power that had passed through her. The mark of the goddess had dimmed, yet its echo pulsed faintly under her skin. When she looked up, she saw the king watching her, not with suspicion or pride this time, but with something far deeper. "You should have left when I told you to," he said quietly. She tried to smile. "And let your sons grow up without a father?" The goddess wouldn't have allowed it. He huffed a breath that might have been a laugh. "You speak as if you know her will." "I don't," she admitted, "but I trust what she places in my heart." Aldrich turned toward the fallen soldiers, his jaw tightening. "I have ruled by strength my entire life, fought wars, conquered lands, but none of it could break this curse." His voice cracked slightly. "Until you did." She shook her head. "No, I only showed the truth already inside you. The curse wasn't just on your bloodline. It was in your heart, your grief." For a long moment he said nothing. The wind carried the faint cry of wolves returning to the forest. Then, softly, he asked, "Do you think a man like me can be forgiven?" Ilara stepped closer, meeting his gaze. "Forgiveness isn't something you earn. It's something you choose to live worthy of." Aldrich looked away, his shoulders heavy. "When my queen died, I begged the goddess for mercy. I thought she answered with silence. But maybe she sent you instead." Her throat tightened. "You believed I was cursed." "I did," he admitted. "Because it was easier than believing the goddess still cared for me." The sound of approaching hooves broke the stillness. Mistress Wynne rode through the clearing, her cloak torn, but her eyes alight with relief. Behind her, the royal guards carried the princes, weary but unharmed. When the boys saw Ilara, they leapt from the saddle, running straight into her arms. Arian buried his face against her chest, while Cale clung to her sleeve. "We knew you'd come," he whispered. "The moon told us." Ilara laughed softly through tears. Then the moon was right. Aldrich knelt beside them, pulling his sons close. For the first time in years his voice trembled as he said, "You've made your father proud." Cale looked up. "And Mama too?" Aldrich's gaze flickered toward Ilara. "Yes," he said gently. "Mama too." The twins smiled, their silver eyes reflecting the morning light. When the soldiers dispersed to tend the wounded, Aldrich turned back to Ilara. "You risked everything for them, for me." "I didn't do it for you," she said softly. "I did it because they needed me." Then, after a pause, "But maybe that means you did too." He reached for her hand hesitantly, as though afraid it would vanish. "The curse is breaking, I can feel it. The moon no longer burns." Ilara nodded. "It's because you faced what you feared most." Aldrich's grip tightened. "Losing them?" "No," she whispered. "Losing yourself." He exhaled shakily, the weight of centuries lifting from his shoulders. Then what happens now? Ilara looked toward the horizon, where dawn painted the sky in silver and gold. Now, the goddess decides if redemption is enough. But in the way his sons laughed, and in the light that warmed her mark, she already knew the answer. The moon hung white and clear above Eldoria that night, its light spilling across the castle like silk. For the first time in decades, it shone without red. The air felt lighter, freer, yet inside Ilara's chest, a strange unease stirred. The goddess had kept her alive for a reason, and reasons always came with a price. The great hall was filled with quiet celebration. Servants moved softly, nobles whispered prayers of thanks, and the king's wolves rested peacefully by the hearth. The war was over, the curse undone, or so it seemed. Ilara stood by the window, her reflection pale against the glass. The crescent mark on her palm shimmered faintly, pulsing in rhythm with her heart. She pressed her hand to her chest, whispering, "What do you want from me now?" The answer came not in words but in warmth. The mark brightened, the light threading up her wrist like silver vines. Behind her, Aldrich entered, his footsteps measured. "You're still asking questions the moon won't answer," he said quietly. She turned. "She's never silent for long." He approached, his armor gone, his voice gentler than she'd ever heard. "The healers say the land is already changing. The rivers run clear again. The wolves howl not in pain, but in song." "That's what freedom sounds like," she murmured. He studied her, eyes softening. "And you? What do you sound like when you're free?" Her breath caught. "I don't know. I've never been." For a moment the world shrank to the space between them. The king who had once ruled through fear now looked at her as though she were something sacred. "You saved my sons, my kingdom, my soul," he said. "I have no words that can match that." "You don't need words," she whispered. "Just truth." Aldrich hesitated. "The truth is I once feared love. I thought it made men weak. But it was pride that cursed me, not love." His voice broke. "The goddess showed me that through you." Ilara lowered her gaze, her heart trembling. "You think this is love?" "I think," he said, stepping closer, "that the goddess does not send the same soul twice. And yet when I look at you I see the part of my heart I buried with my queen." Tears filled her eyes. "You shouldn't compare me to her. I'm not." He reached out, gently lifting her chin. "Lysandra was my past. You are my redemption." The mark on Ilara's hand flared suddenly, filling the room with light. She gasped as the glow spread between them, tracing a line from her palm to his chest. A matching mark, silver and crescent-shaped, appeared over his heart. The bond sealed with a quiet hum that filled the air like a heartbeat. Aldrich stared in awe. "What is this?" "The true mate's mark," she breathed. "The goddess's covenant. It only appears once the curse is broken." He took her glowing hand in his, their light merging. "Then it was never a curse," he said. "It was a path." Ilara smiled through her tears. "A path we had to walk in the dark to find each other." Outside, the wolves howled again, not in warning but in reverence. The light between them faded into a soft glow that lingered on their skin. Aldrich rested his forehead against hers, whispering, "Stay with me, as my Luna, as my equal." Ilara's voice trembled. "If the goddess wills it. She already has." The mark pulsed once more before settling into their flesh, permanent, eternal. In that moment, they understood. The bond wasn't born of desire or destiny, but choice. And when dawn rose over Eldoria, its light caught their joined hands, gleaming with the quiet promise of a kingdom reborn. Spring came to Eldoria like a blessing whispered by the moon. The snow melted from the mountains, rivers sparkled again, and the air carried the scent of wildflowers and rain. Where death had once walked, life returned in abundance. The wolves sang at dusk, their voices joined by laughter from the villages below. Ilara stood on the balcony of the royal hall, the mark on her hand glimmering softly in the sunlight. Below her, banners of silver and blue fluttered in the breeze, symbols not of war but renewal. It still felt strange to her, the silence that followed centuries of fear. The curse was gone, The bloodline was free, yet peace carried its own kind of weight. Behind her, Aldrich entered, dressed not in armor but in the ceremonial robes of his forefathers. He paused, watching her with quiet admiration. "Every time I look at you," he said, "I wonder if I'm still dreaming." She smiled faintly. "If this is a dream, then let us never wake." He approached, his expression softening. "Tomorrow the council gathers. They'll want you to sit beside me." "As your Luna?" "As my queen," he corrected gently. "Eldoria owes its rebirth to you, Ilara. The people call you the Silver Heart, the woman who healed both man and moon." Her throat tightened. "They called me Barren once." He touched her hand, tracing the mark. "And now they call you Mother to us all." She looked out over the city. Children ran through the courtyards, chasing each other beneath the bright sky. The twin princes, her sons by choice if not by blood, played among them, their laughter echoing like music. "They're happy," she said softly. "That's all I ever wanted." Aldrich's gaze lingered on her profile. "You gave them what I couldn't. Hope." "They gave me the same," she whispered. For a moment neither spoke. The wind carried the sound of distant bells, once used to signal danger, now ringing to announce celebration. The coronation would come with the next full moon, the night the goddess herself had once cursed. Now it would become the symbol of her mercy. Ilara turned to Aldrich. "Do you think she's watching us still?" He nodded slowly. "I think she never stopped. The goddess didn't curse us, Ilara. She waited for us to remember what love truly means." Ilara smiled faintly. "And now," he said, "she's proud." A knock came at the door. Mistress Wynne entered, her silver hair braided with ribbons of blue. "Your Majesty," she said, with a curt bow to both of them, "the people await you in the courtyard. They wish to see their queen." Ilara hesitated. "I'm not sure I deserve that title." Wynne's eyes softened. "Deserving has nothing to do with destiny. The moon chose, and so did we." The king offered his hand. "Walk with me." As they descended the marble stairs, Ilara's heart pounded, not from fear, but awe. The courtyard below was filled with people, villagers, soldiers, nobles, all waiting. When she stepped into the sunlight, a cheer erupted, rising like thunder and rain combined. The twins ran forward, each carrying a crown of woven lilies. "Papa said these are for you," Arian said proudly. "For us," Cale corrected, handing the second wreath to Aldrich. Ilara knelt, her eyes shining. "Then we shall wear them both." The crowd quieted as Aldrich placed his hand in hers, lifting it high. "Behold your Lunar Queen," he proclaimed, "chosen by the goddess, bound by the moon and beloved by her people." The voices that answered shook the earth. "Long live the Lunar Queen!" Ilara's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in her life, she was not running, not hiding. She had found her home among wolves, kings, and sons who called her mother. And above them, the moon glowed brighter than ever, a silent witness to a kingdom reborn. The moon rose full and silver over Eldoria, bathing the castle in soft light. It was the first coronation under a peaceful sky in generations. The bells tolled, echoing through the valleys and forests, summoning all who had lived through darkness to witness the dawn of a new age. Ilara stood before the mirror in her chambers, the gown of the Lunar Queen resting upon her shoulders like moonlight woven into silk. Her hands trembled slightly as she fastened the crescent pendant at her neck. The mark on her palm shimmered faintly, alive as ever. A knock sounded. "May I come in?" It was Aldrich's voice, steady, warm, and tinged with something softer than command. "Always," she replied. When he entered, time seemed to pause. He wore no crown, only the symbol of his lineage embroidered across his tunic. "You take my breath away," he murmured, almost to himself. Ilara smiled faintly. "Careful, Your Majesty. You might start sounding human." He chuckled, stepping closer. "You've made me one." Then, quietly, "Are you ready?" She nodded, though her heart raced. "As ready as the moon before dawn." Outside, the courtyard filled with voices and torches. The people of Eldoria gathered beneath banners of silver and white. Children sat on their fathers' shoulders. Elders clasped their hands in prayer. The wolves howled in harmony with the bells. As Alara and Aldrich stepped onto the balcony, the noise swelled like a wave of devotion. The king raised his hand for silence. "Eldoria," he said, voice carrying across the courtyard, "we once lived in the shadow of our sins, but tonight we rise in the light of forgiveness. The goddess has restored our bond, not through strength, but through love." He turned to Alara, his eyes bright. It was her heart that healed this kingdom, her courage that broke the curse. "From this day forth she is not only your queen, she is your Luna, your guide beneath the moon." The crowd erupted. Tears blurred Alara's vision as Aldrich took her hand and placed a crown of silver upon her head. The moment it touched her hair, the moonlight flared, cascading across the city like falling stars. Then from the front of the crowd, two small voices rose above the noise. "Mama!" The word struck her heart like sunlight through storm clouds. The twins pushed past the guards, their little hands clutching flowers. Kale's smile gleamed with pride, while Arian's eyes shone with tears. Alara knelt as they ran to her. "My loves," she whispered, gathering them close. Kale grinned. "We made these for you." "The moon said you should have lilies, not jewels." "They're perfect," she said, her voice breaking. Arian looked up, his small hand brushing her cheek. "You're our mother now, right?" Her tears fell freely. "If you'll have me." Both boys nodded fiercely. "Forever." The crowd cheered again, but this time the sound felt different. More than celebration. It was belonging. Aldrich placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice low. They were waiting for this moment, so was I. Alara looked up at him, her heart steady at last. "Then let this be our beginning, not our ending." He smiled. "Agreed, my queen." As night deepened, the people sang hymns of renewal. The wolves' howls joined them, blending into one endless sound, the sound of life returning. Alara gazed up at the moon, silver and kind. "Thank you," she whispered, "for choosing me, even when the world did not." The mark on her palm glowed once more, its light warm and gentle. The curse was gone, the fear was gone, and in its place, love reigned, quiet, unwavering, eternal. The Alpha King's sons called her mother, the kingdom called her queen, and the goddess watching from above called her beloved.